What's the matter? Not enough people running their fists through people's chests? You need more? Well, wish granted, because with the Boys series continuing on, the violence and overall absurdity will certainly continue. We've come to know people like Homelander, Billy Butcher, and Stormfront for their body counts and violent natures. But we've seen the old, how about the new? The Boys comic series has several characters who have not been introduced into the show yet, and these characters bring their own zany flair to the way they like to kill people. Just who are these soups who have yet to grace us with their presence on the small screen? Let's take a deep dive right now. Do you think that he goes by Jack the Jupiter even when he's on Jupiter? That'd be like me walking into the local supermarket and Tony, my longtime grocer, yelling out, "Hey, it's Nick from Earth. How you doing today, man?" The reason Jack from Jupiter hasn't been in the show yet is likely the same reason he was eventually ousted from his longtime spot on the 7 in the comics. He just simply doesn't have as much fan appeal as the other heroes created by Vought International.
I'm the Homelander.
His introduction early also would have been a huge revelation, since there's no characters in the show to date that are confirmed to be non-human. Jack from Jupiter is quite literally an alien, making him different from the heroes that have been created by Vought. In the show, the world has almost tried to pull back on the fantastical elements, instead making it seem that all superpowers were created by a serum. This could be the truth of the reality, or we could meet someone like Jack from Jupiter, who blows the doors wide open on the universe. Jack can fly and change his skin tissue to be impenetrable. He is an orange-colored alien who did not partake in as much of the earthbound sodomy that other soups do. Overall, the addition of Jack would blow the minds of the people living in the Boys universe. Mr. Marathon is a branding dream, and he was actually the speedster of the 7 long before A-Train came around. He's been mentioned a few times in the show. Ashley told A-Train prior to his removal from the team that he lasted 4 years longer than Mr. Marathon, and Lamplighter recollects some memories of working with him, but outside of that there's been no confirmation that he's still around. Just like A-Train, perhaps Mr. Marathon started to lose his touch, making him useless and ousted by Homelander. Now I know Homelander's not the nicest guy, but that doesn't mean he fried Mr. Marathon.
Yeah, okay.
Now, Mr. Marathon is definitely not what you call a good guy, seeing as outside of Starlight, soups like that don't really seem to exist. But he definitely wasn't the worst among them. During the 9/11 crisis in the comics, heroes like Homelander and Jack from Jupiter wanted to flee instead of completing the mission. It was Mr. Marathon who convinced them to stick around to try and help. Granted, he attributed that to not being fired, but still. Unfortunately, this didn't go well for him, as during Homelander's failed attempt to stop the incoming plane, Mr. Marathon was decapitated. This could have been the fate of Mr. Marathon in the show, but something tells me the way A-Train's character is going, he may stumble upon some advice from an older, wiser speedster from the 7. You're gonna have to pardon my French during this one, because the next soup who has yet to make a small screen appearance goes by the name of Blarney Cock. Let's just say most of his content is marked as mature. Blarney was another soup who was a hero in the public eye, but just a bad dude behind the curtain. He belonged to another famous hero team, Teenage Kicks. During an attack by Teenage Kicks on the Boys, Blarney was accidentally killed by Huey. He left behind a pet hamster that lived, well, let's just say that hamster has seen some things. Huey adopted the hamster out of pity, not knowing what the future would hold for that decision. Blarney Cock was then resurrected and went on to get his hamster back, only to be killed by Huey again, this time with his body being burned to prevent further resurrections. Overall, Blarney's powers are standard, flight along with speed, strength, and durability. But his ability to be revived made him unique. If only he was the kind of guy you would want to revive. Blarney's favorite hobby was stealing painkillers from children's hospitals. He was also later revealed to be the son of Queen Maeve and the Legend. So based on the show, it's unfortunately definitely possible that Blarney Cock could be making his way to the Boys.
I know what you want.
This is maybe one of the coolest looking soups we have yet to see. Tech Knight is a man by the name of Robert Vernon, and unlike many of the other soups, he doesn't need any Compound V to be just the worst. Robert Vernon is actually the third person to hold the moniker, using high-tech suits and weapons to pretend to fight crime while actually committing crime. The suit does look cool, and he's definitely a satire on Tony Stark, showing what it would be like if Tony didn't back up his attitude with undoubtedly heroic actions. Tech Knight is a founder of the supergroup known as Payback, which is basically the NSYNC to the Seven's Backstreet Boys. Tech Knight is also a take on Batman, as he has a young ward named Ladio. Unlike the original Tech Knights, the third incarnation, Robert Vernon, is just a gross sexual deviant. It's caused him to commit heinous crimes, and is ultimately responsible for the Boys bringing him to an end. Overall, Tech Knight would be a cool character to introduce into the show. He basically follows the morals of the boys, rejecting Compound V, but still fights on the side of the terrible Supes. Imagine you're a parent, and your kid, going through their rebellious phase, is running around with friends named Blarney Cock and Whack Job. Sounds like some great role models, huh? Blarney's best buddy Whack Job is someone who would likely appear alongside him in the show, given that the two are essentially synonymous with each other. Which means yes, that lovely painkiller theft hobby is a favorite pastime of his as well. Whack Job has the unique powers of electrokinesis, meaning he can control electricity with his mind, which I'm assuming means a lot of citywide blackouts considering those powers belong to a dude named Whack Job. He witnessed the killing of his friend Blarney Cock during the boys' attack on Teenage Kicks, of which he was also a member. Whack Job was easily defeated by Mother's Milk, and was powerless to stop Huey from killing his friend. He appeared at Blarney's funeral, but after that he was never seen again. It was hinted he fell into a deep depression and left the team. Blarney Cock and Whack Job could be an interesting duo to introduce into the show, and given some time, Whack Job could come back as an incredibly powerful villain, seeking revenge for the death of his friend. That or he'll realize he and his friend were kind of terrible people. That's usually how it goes, right?
Because you have faith!
John Godolkin is not a Supe. However, people like Stan Edgar showed us that you don't need that sweet Compound V to have near limitless power.
The point is that you are under a misconception.
John Godolkin is most famous in the universe of The Boys for founding the super team known as the G-Men. What? What bald guy in a wheelchair? No, they spell it with an X. Totally different.
History.
The G-Men are a team of terrible heroes founded by a pedophile with money and charisma. Some of their members have appeared in the show, like Silver Kincaid, but several have yet to make an appearance. One such member is a man by the name of 5-0. This Supe has no morals, or sense of fashion really, since he appears to always be ready for a motorcycle ride. He has no loyalty to anyone except his leader John Godolkin, and his fellow member Cold Snap. 5-0 would be a brutal and heartless villain to introduce, and if you introduce him alongside some other members, teamed with a scorned Silver Kincaid, who missed out at her chance on the 7, then you've got the makings for a fine G-Men team in the Boys series. With a member who has such a disregard for life, Supe and human alike, like 5-0, the G-Men could rival the 7 in terms of being downright terrible. Another future member of the G-Men, who we have yet to see make an appearance, is a Supe by the name of Critter. You know how Compound V is sort of a mystery box for anyone who takes it? You could come out looking like Homelander.
You're not lying.
Or on the opposite end, you could come out looking like Critter. Critter is an abundantly tall creature, covered in hair, and let's just say he has a skin condition. He is a terrible team member, constantly contradicting his boss and teammates. He is downright a terrible person. You'd think someone like Critter wouldn't judge people based on how they look, but I guess it goes to show you that hate lives everywhere. Oh right, that skin condition I mentioned? Critter has to wear essentially the cone of shame around his neck at all times. He even tapes boxing gloves on his hands to keep from scratching. He's just a large, disgusting fur bag who has the manners and powers of an animal, making him a pretty formidable villain. He's definitely the odd one out on the G-Men, which, considering their roster, is really saying quite a bit. Imagine Beast of the X-Men without the college degree and table manners. That's pretty much what you get with Critter. Every great, or in this case terrible but masquerading as great, team needs a leader. The non-Supe John Godolkin may be the founder of the G-Men, but its leader is a Supe by the name of Groundhawk. I'm just gonna stop right there. Groundhawk? You're literally taking the coolest part about a hawk and throwing it out the window. Some of these names, man. Vought or whoever's marketing department needs a reboot. So they've got a guy named Critter on the team, but Groundhawk, who is made the leader, is the feral Supe who can't speak. I'm telling you, there are just great decisions being made all over.
We need help.
Groundhawk has an animalistic instinct that requires him to kill. His hammer hands are capable of doing that to Supes and humans alike with a single punch. And I do mean hammer hands. He's literally got hammers where his hands should be. There has been a mention of Groundhawk in a brief newscast in the Boys series, but we have yet to see a full-fledged appearance. With some of these hints and Vought needing new competition, Groundhawk could be brought in to lead the G-Men when wealthy aristocrat John Godolkin forms his own super team. I just am telling you that you should place bets now that it doesn't go well.
You want to quit stroking my ego and show me what you really got?
The Amazon series already sort of showed us their take on a supervillain posing as the leader of a religious organization in the form of Ezekiel.
Why does Homelander fly?
However, Ezekiel may have been based on this guy, but his power set and story is different, which could be paving way for a full-fledged appearance of O-Father. O-Father is the leader of the Capes for Christ, using religion to hide the fact that he's a serial pedophile and all-around terrible person. His powers include flight, super strength, and super durability, but nowhere near the level of someone like Homelander. However, O-Father was powerful enough to get Homelander's attention when he was recruited by the world's biggest jerk to try and take over everything. Reluctant at first, O-Father joined Homelander and began an assault on the White House. With his uncomfortably young sidekicks, O-Father and Homelander took on the entire Air Force. Unfortunately, this is where O-Father proved not to quite measure up, as he was quickly destroyed by a rocket. Based on how the show is going, a lot of people are starting to conspire against Homelander, meaning he could be looking for some allies very soon, and O-Father is ripe for the picking and terrible enough to fall right up Homelander's alley.
How are you? Hey, thanks for coming along. God bless you guys. God bless you.
We need more teams in The Boys.
Harry.
So far it's the 7, The Boys, and some hints towards others, but they never actually appear. The world of The Boys is full of so many more hero teams than just the ones working for Vought, and I think it's time some get introduced. We already talked about the G-Men, and to incorporate the younger crowd, I believe it's time to meet Team Titanic. Trust me, definitely no metaphorical iceberg coming their way. Vought International created this team made entirely of former sidekicks in order to appeal to the younger crowd. It includes soups like the leader Mal Chemical, who can shapeshift not only into other people like Doppelganger, but also change his density and material he is made of. He was the former leader of the team that also included characters like Country Mama, a super strong Queen Maeve-esque hero, who never made it out of the minor leagues before being decapitated. There are other members as well, that you're gonna have to look up because I'm definitely not saying their names here. Team Titanic is definitely a rip on the Teen Titans, which would be a great team if not to rival the 7, then to at least have someone for the horrible members of the 7 to mock mercilessly. We're definitely getting more of the craziness that comes from The Boys, which means any one of these characters are fair game in future episodes and future seasons. Which yet to be seen character do you hope appears in The Boys?